What's up, y'all? Serrano786 here for another Diablo 4 video. Today, I wanted to talk about seasonal gameplay for dummies. If you've never done seasonal gameplay, I wanted to talk a little bit about what to look for, what to expect. This is more so about building, though, and like your builds and what to kind of aim for. Mind you, these are just the opinions of myself. I am going to use a lot of comparisons to Destiny 2 because their seasonal model with buffs, debuffs, certain perks, or in their case, artifacts and their buffs to certain things, compared to Diablo 4 and the Malignant Hearts. Because the Malignant Hearts and the seasonal artifact for Destiny 2 work very similarly. So I'm going to be making a reference to Destiny 2 throughout some of this with pictures and other things like that. If you're new to the channel, you know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. But the TLDR, if you just want the meat and potatoes of everything, the main thing to look for when trying to figure out, okay, what class do I want to play? And this is if you really want to optimize, play, something really powerful. You're going to want to look for what classes got the most buffs or what certain abilities got the most buffs, what class or what abilities got left alone, and then what the Malignant Hearts are doing for buffs in certain abilities or just buffs in general, and then build around that, because that's typically how it works in Destiny. The seasonal artifact really dictates what you're going to be playing for the season. Like this season and the Season of the Deep for Destiny 2, it is Arc subclass, Void subclass, and Strand, because that's the new flavor of this expansion. Now, mind you, that doesn't mean you have to play those things, kind of very similarly with the Malignant Hearts or the buffs and debuffs with Diablo 4. If there's some class or some build that you like playing, you can still play it. Obviously, certain things are not going to be as powerful, like Hoda build, Bone Spear, Sorcerer got a nerf with some of their passives. So it's probably just not going to be as strong. There's already a lot of content creators making videos of their builds just not being as good. Now, mind you, the Malignant Hearts are going to help with that as the season progresses, and these things are going to flesh out, right? But my video is mainly to just kind of steer you in the direction of, okay, moving forward, if you are going to become a seasonal player, kind of keep these things in mind as you move forward, because these are going to be the things that are really going to dictate where the meta shift. And that's what this seasonal kind of model does. It shows you and it kind of guides you into these certain meta builds. Now, for Destiny, oddly enough, what they do, at least from what I've gathered, is they use this to kind of determine and kind of tune classes, right? They're using it to tune classes. They're using it to tune abilities by gathering all this data on the back end of damage numbers and things of that nature. I'm assuming that that's what Diablo and Blizzard is going to be doing, is they're going to take all this data. Okay, if people are playing a bunch of tornado builds, if people playing a bunch of less bone spears and more minion builds, if sorcerers are not playing arc slash build or blizzard build and they're using other builds, we can gather more data and kind of figure out, okay, where do we need to tune these things? How much more of a buff do these things? Because you also got to think, they did buff a lot of stuff, but if people are still not using them and they're not being used, it's going to be information for Diablo and Blizzard to say, okay, these things are still not being used. We need to buff these further. And then if certain other builds, like let's just say tornado build, because that's, in my opinion, is going to be the flavor of the season. Tornado build for Druid is overperforming, then they can tune that back and put it more in line so things are kind of, and that's going to be, honestly, and if you're not used to this, this is all this is. Seasons are a way for Blizzard to kind of, and I'm making like a wave here, it's a way for them to kind of take these waves and kind of like just kind of make a level playing field, right? I'm assuming the goal is they want everything to feel close in power so you can play what you want to play, because obviously you can't do that. Preseason, obviously there were a bunch of builds that were really meta, some that were broken, like Hoda, Bone Spear, Blizzard. They did nerf a lot of those and remove those extra things that made them do extreme damage. But as the seasons progress, you're going to see a lot of these changes move throughout. That was a bit of a long intro there, but I kind of wanted to lay it all out moving forward. That's the TLDR. The rest of this is just going to be just showing my thoughts on what's going to be the new flavor. I already said that. I think Druid is going to be, in my opinion, going to be the most powerful build, the tornado build. I'll go over that here in a little bit. Hope you enjoy the rest of this video, but let's hop to it. Now, a few weeks ago, I did make a video about Blizzard taking a page out of Bungie's book and how their seasonal model works. Blizzard does this really well about taking ideas from other companies, other developers, other MMOs, in the case of World of Warcraft, and making it their own. Kudos to Blizzard for doing that. But the seasonal model really for Bungie, in this case Diablo, and the seasonal artifacts for Destiny 2, and then the Malignant Hearts for Diablo 4 are going to dictate how you build it. And again, you don't have to do that, but I did want to talk about my thoughts and what I think is going to be some of the best builds. And I kind of rank these in this notepad picture from the top being the Druid all the way down to the Sorc. And again, obviously that could change as the season pans out and as we actually get to try these out more, get higher level Malignant Hearts and things like that. So take this next part with a grain of salt. Again, this is just my opinion, but let's talk about the Druid. So the first thing that I noticed in the patch notes when they were talking about fixes, because there was a whole list of fixes that they were doing for each class, the first thing that I noticed that was huge to me was the second line here that says, fixed an issue with seeking tornadoes produced by Storm Chaser's aspect will not deal damage. So Storm Chaser's aspect basically reads that up to, and I think at the cap with non-neck buff, is up to 3 tornadoes will seek out new enemies after you generate these tornadoes. So they seek out mobs instead of just kind of randomly moving around. Now, apparently it sounded like based on this that some of those weren't doing damage. When I was playing Tornado Druid, I just thought they weren't hitting. I thought it was just missing, that the tornadoes weren't hitting. So that's huge. That means those ramp builds that were doing insane tornado damage, some of those tornadoes were not doing damage. So that's going to make them even more powerful. Now, this third line reads that the tornado damage had gotten buffed from 19% to 23%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, right? That only sounds like 4%, but you got to think about it as a whole, right? That's an 18% damage buff from the starting value of 19 to 23%. That's an 18% buff. That is huge. Now, typically in the tornado build, you don't run Mad Wolf's Glee. You'd rather have some like defensive chess piece with defense against distant or close. But with the nerfs to that, it might actually be better to go more glass cannon. I guess it depends on how you want to build it. But if you did run Mad Wolves, you do get an extra rank because they did buff that up from 2 to 3. Now, when it comes to the Malignant Hearts, what I'm going to be aiming for, since I'm going to be playing Druid this season, is Determination. Is the resource draining effects are lessened by 40 to 50%. In addition, you gain resource regeneration. Resource generation, kind of self-explanatory. The thing that I really kind of hated about this, because it's a bit ambiguous, right? Some of the text is ambiguous. It says resource draining. That could mean anything, right? It could mean just the resource draining from Nightmare Dungeons when, you get attacked from the distance, you lose resource. Could mean that. Resource draining could just mean using a skill. It could be channeling a skill for all we know. But without actually really testing it, I'm assuming that it means using a skill. But the odd part is it doesn't say skill. It just says resource draining effects. I don't know. We'll have to test this out. But if it is, using skills, that's going to be huge. The resource generation is nice on that. But we'll have to kind of see how it plays out. The next two are just awesome as well. Even if I don't use Determination, I'll probably find something else to mix in there. But Inexorable Force, this just sounds ridiculous. It's basically a pull that when you're in ultimate, it pulls 30 to 50 mobs towards you. And so you can just cast tornadoes really quick. That's going to be awesome. I think that's going to be super awesome. Now, I wonder if that's going to be able to double dip into the super that I have here for the third Malignant Heart that I'm going to be running, the super, which is when you're hit by a stun, freeze, or knockdown effect, there's a 40 to 60% chance to go into Grizzly Rage for 3 seconds, which I'm wondering if proccing that actually will proc the Inexorable Force. So you kind of see this loop here, right, where I'm kind of going with this. If you proc the Grizzly Rage when you get stunned or CC'd, you're going to be able to pull in mobs. On top of that, you're going to be unstoppable for 3 seconds. And I also wonder, there's an aspect that increases your Grizzly Rage by like 2 or 3 seconds. I wonder if that'll also proc for the super as well. You can kind of see where this is going, right? Like it being like an endless loop if you're getting CC'd really badly. Even if you're not, this is just going to be really awesome, I think, for tornado builds. The other build that I was kind of looking at was Sorcerer with the super and Determination as well, maybe running like Chain Lightning. so you could pop out like 2, 3, 4, 5 chain lightnings at one time. Sounded kind of fun, but Druid overall sounded like it didn't really get a whole bunch of nerfs, and if anything, got a buff for their best build. So I think Druid is really going to be the play here. Again, we'll have to see how this season pans out, how things move forward. Me personally, I'm going to run Druid. But yeah, let me know what you're going to be running this season. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're new to the channel, you know what to do. Like, subscribe. I appreciate you watching this video. As always, have a good rest of your day and stay spicy out there, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Later.